tuning in on a Friday. It's November, and if you're anything like me, you're happy to put Halloween and candy overload in the rearview mirror. So let's get started. What are we going to talk about today? So this presentation, this webinar is focused on what's new in the off-grid market, what kind of products and solutions are out there that can help you build more efficient, more cost-effective renewable energy systems. Before we get to that, just briefly want to talk about what drives new products and kind of put some of these new products and solutions in perspective. And then we'll just get right into the details here. Try to group these in batteries and inverters, and got a couple extra things to show you there. And time permitting, we'll be able to speak a little bit to some things that are coming soon. I'm a little bit privileged in the kind of information I have access to. Some of this stuff is preliminary, etc. Probably not fit for public consumption, but hopefully I can leave you guys some breadcrumbs to follow for some new products that are going to be hitting in Q1 and Q2. So that said, let's get started here. I like to do this slide. I like to talk about what's new in the marketplace and why do some of these things come to light. In general, when we talk about new products, it could be a number of things that bring them to market. Could be compliance and code changes. Could be a product that brings about labor savings. In solar, for grid-tied solar, we're always keen on cost savings. If you think about the purpose of a net metered system, it's besides the renewable aspects, there's definitely a financial case for almost every system that gets installed. So the more time you can save, the more cost you can save at the same production level, the better the payoff of that system. Yield improvements, we're always looking for more efficiency, more productivity out of our systems. This could come in the form of more efficiency, so watts per square foot. Could come in conversion efficiency, so how high can you get that throughput from photons hitting a module to electrons back into a panel or back onto the grid. And then we can also talk about, besides efficiency, in those two senses, productivity in terms of how much are we able to harvest during a day. And the big one there that is the superb example is MPPT and voltage windows. So if we can get a system working longer during the day, so on earlier in the morning and on later into the day, that's a huge yield improvement. And then finally, install versus retrofit. So we're fortunate enough in this industry to be at almost the second or third generation of some of these systems where there's retrofit opportunities now that were not available to us in years past. You see a lot of these products being introduced to the market now under the guise of repowering, and specifically what we mean there is replacing some of the old central or string inverters with new technology. I won't get too much into that today, but just a good framework for us to think about. Talking through product categories, inverters, micros, optimizers, storage products, which we'll spend quite a bit of time on today, modules. These are things we see a lot of innovation. Typically, we see product life cycles somewhere around 2 to 3 years, which is really remarkable in this industry. And if you've ever run into me at a cocktail hour, I usually speak to this because for me it's fascinating. These products that take a year, 2 years, 3 years to come to market, and the again, typical lifespan is 2 to 3 years for some of these high volume products. So just the work that goes into them and the short life cycle and the yield we're able to get is pretty fascinating. I come from an industry of electrical distribution where products take 2 to 3 years to develop, and you might have the same breaker or the same panel or the same disconnect be viable for 30 or 40 years. So working in solar has definitely been a paradigm shift for me. All right, let's keep moving here. The first thing I wanted to speak to is the Discover AES. So for those of you paying keen attention at home or in the office, this is not a brand new product. We've had this for some time now. There's a couple new sizes I'll speak to, and I think for a lot of folks, they may be hearing about this for the first time. So what is an AES? So this is an advanced energy system. It's essentially, it's a drop-in lead acid replacement lithium ion. It's a lithium iron phosphate chemistry, and really these were designed to be, just kind of direct replacements for 12-volt lead-acid cells. So the footprint's a little larger, but you see the same type of architecture you would see in a 12-volt drop-in cell. Inside each one of these is a multitude of smaller cells. So 26 parallel strings of 16 cells to get both the amperage and the current up. And if you've seen any of the YouTube videos on this or any of the teardowns, you see that these are not your typical lead acid construction where you have one cell that gets you 12 volts and hundreds of amps. These are lots of little small cells that are paralleled in series together to get the voltage and the amperage that these modern systems need. The AES product is available in CAN bus or ZAN bus enabled. The ZAN bus units are plug and play with Schneider Electric. And you can also, if you're using a different system, you can use the Schneider Electric COM bus to have visibility and monitoring into that battery. High cycle life, so 4-year unlimited cycle life warranty, really high charge discharge ratings, which is one of the best features of a lithium-ion chemistry relative to lead acid is the charge discharge rates. Either we talk about them in terms of amperes or in C rates, but great performance there. I say all this to get me to the next slide, which is a product coming out soon called the Discover Lynk. So this is a communication gateway really designed to get the full potential out of the AES batteries. So each AES battery has its own onboard BMS. These have typically been called closed loop communications, where the BMS is monitoring voltage and temperature and really trying to optimize how the battery is used and protect the cells. There's a communication path with the Schneider Electric ZAN bus network, which is what I made reference to. And now they're opening this up to lots of other proprietary protocols. So Morningstar, SMA Sunny Islands, I mentioned Schneider Electric there, Outback Power using the access port there. So what does that get you? So this is going to enable the battery's BMS to optimize the charge and discharge configurations of compatible inverter and charge controller systems. What does that mean in layman's terms? That means that the battery is going to make smarter decisions on how it's charged and discharged, and it's going to actively communicate with the inverters or charge controllers charging this battery and make smarter decisions on charge rates, discharge rates, state of charge, etc. So closed loop communications with the power electronics equipment. And the note from Discover is up to 25% improvement in time required for a full charge. So once you close the loop and you communicate between the battery and the inverter, you can, I suppose a good way to say it would be you can run a little more aggressive charge profile. Once you've got active communications, you are less susceptible to an over temperature situation where the battery protects itself and disconnects. And you will be able to taper charges, et cetera, and really run these, maybe this is not the word, but more efficiently. So, when you're able to shorten the amount of time required for a full charge, you can, perhaps have less storage on that system or run a little bit more aggressive use profile. So pretty exciting for that. The way the system will work is the Lynk is, I don't want to call it a bus, but basically a communication hub, and systems are going to require one appropriate edge card for whichever power electronics you're working with. So rather than make one device that tried to be everything to everybody, they built an adaptable device with edge cards for Morningstar, Sunny Islands, Schneider Electric, et cetera. So the system would be the appropriate amount of batteries for the system, a Discover Lynk, the respective edge card to match with the power electronics, and then of course the power electronics. So pretty excited for this to be here. It really brings about the promise of closed loop communications with lithium-ion batteries. And if you've if you paid attention to the webinars I've done in the past, you know that this is, one of my sticking points, that to get the most out of a lithium-ion system, you really want to have that two-way communication so that you can feel comfortable knowing that your battery is going to be protected, but that they will communicate with the system and make the right decisions based on what's actually happening in the battery, and not try to infer things based on voltage, which seems to work pretty well with lead-acid systems. We've had a long track record of being able to use battery inverters and charge controllers with lead-acid batteries without true Coulomb counters or without true state of charge. Lithium-ion is just a little bit different, and you can't make the same inferences based off of terminal voltage that you could with a lead-acid battery. So pretty excited for that. Also new from Discover, their OPzV, or if you're a resident of the country to the north, you would call this OPzV. It throws me for a loop every time I hear that. So what is this? It's a tubular gel solution for, I'd say, large and deep cycle off-grid applications. Also in theory applicable to some grid-type storage if the right use case. But we really see the fit for this in large off-grid systems. So these are, again, large, built for deep cycle, extreme life applications, rated to almost 3,000 cycles at 50% depth of discharge. The max charge current, so you're not going to see the same kind of performance you see on the lithium-ion battery where you get, C rates above 1. Max charge current is 30% of the 10-hour rate. So you're not going to want to beat these up, but what these are great for is, again, extreme life, deep cycle applications with predictable loads. These are kits that are assembled and built in the United States. They come with all the interconnect cables and racking, available in both 24 and 48 volt systems. And typically we see a shorter lead time on these than we would other OPzV chemistries and other industrial type solutions. So pretty excited about these. I think these are a great fit for, again, those large off-grid, even mini grid type applications. Pretty excited to have these. Let's keep going on the battery track. The energy cell lineup from Outback Power. So we've gone through a couple iterations with Outback Power as they try to bring the best possible products to market. We've had some products we've launched and then kind of pulled back from a little bit. As we stand today, this is kind of the best available from Outback. Two lines here that really have some overlap, but also are good for a variety of applications. So on the left, we see the PLR, PL standing for pure lead. So this is a great solution for backup power, grid-type battery backup, and off-grid. So the pure lead grids inside the cell increase the life in float and cycling use. This is similar to the application that Outback targeted with the GH battery. So when you're in float or backup, you're looking for a couple things. You're looking for, first off, a battery that doesn't mind being in float a majority of its lifetime, a battery that can sustain a very high discharge rate, a battery that can sustain a high depth of discharge. So not just how quickly are you drawing the power out, but how far down are you drawing the battery. And you're also looking for low self-discharge and long shelf life. Now you might think, grid-tie battery backup, why would I care about low self-discharge? Well, the higher the self-discharge, the more parasitic loss you've got on that system. So typically when we see grid-tie battery backup, it's a net metered application where the homeowner or the installer is also looking for some backup for days of autonomy, or typically targeted towards inclement weather type environments. So to minimize the self-discharge just means that's all those watts are going to go back into your system, and you're going to have a payback for those rather than using that energy to keep your battery topped off. On the other side, the energy cell NC for nanocarbon. These are built for deep cycling and partial state of charge. And really what we've seen on this in the couple of years since this has been out, originally this was positioned as a partial state of charge solution. So, self-consumption, time of use. And really what we've seen is it's a really good practical, one-size-fits-all AGM battery. The nanocarbon on the plates increases the life in float, cycling, or partial state of charge applications. So what we typically saw in the past with lead acid was that was not a battery that liked being in a partial state of charge. It liked those chemistries like being either charged or discharged, but not. I'm gonna not use the word float. They don't like being at a static state of partial state of charge. You started to see sulfation on the plates, and once you start to see that, the end of life of the battery is in sight. So with nanocarbon infused onto the plates, you see much better performance at partial state of charge, longer life, and overall just a better system for that application. So we've got here, for the purposes of this webinar, the 12-volt cells that can be strung together to strings of 2 for 24-volt systems, strings of 4, and obviously you're going to want to parallel to get enough amp hours for the appropriate application. The 12-volt cells here, we've also got a full range of high-capacity solutions from Outback Power. There's been a little bit more movement on that. We haven't yet seen the high-capacity PLRs. The high-capacity nanocarbons are available, but typically we've recommended the high-capacity REs because the lead time's a little shorter on that and a little more predictable in terms of availability. Great batteries from the energy cell lineup in Outback Power, and these are among our highest sellers. So let's keep moving. What else is new from Outback? That's the Skybox. So this is, I think there's probably going to be some people that scratch their heads and say, well, this is not built for off-grid. Yeah, not a true off-grid inverter, but we see this as a very useful tool in most people's toolboxes. And what I mean by that is it's a product that can target a lot of different applications. Now, having been there in my marketing days, you typically don't see one product. You don't see an installation that targets multiple applications at the same time. I used to like to say, yeah, a Swiss Army knife's great, but you're usually only using an inverter or a charge controller or a system for one thing at a time. Having said that, I think the advantage to this is, people on the phone can get used to working with one product, knowing that it can do multiple things, and they can really become more efficient and spend less time designing, spend less time installing because they've become familiar with one platform. So what about the Skybox? Can operate in both grid-tied and hybrid mode. The batteries are optional. So what do we mean by that? We mean that you can install this as a string inverter, go back and retrofit batteries later. Unlike most of the, call it hybrid or battery inverters on the market, the conversion circuitry, the conversion boards do not run off the DC bus. Sorry, let me rephrase that. They do not run off the low voltage DC bus. So the great point to this, again, you're kind of future-proofed in terms of this is a product you can install and add storage later. Similarly, if you're looking at stacking these units, you can install 3 of these and maybe only 2 of them have a battery bank. Maybe one of them is just serving the role of a PV inverter. Over 96% PV to grid efficiency. So, we know how important efficiency becomes when you're talking about, even small systems, those, 5, 6, 7% losses from PV to AC become really important when you're looking at the cost of storage and what that means for days of autonomy. Input current there, compatible with just about every module on the market. Optional CTs for demand response or self-consumption. And then all of the optional balance of system you're going to need for a code compliant installation. The arc fault, the rapid shutdown, 5-year warranty, This thing is like a breeze to install. I wish I had a good picturing of the wiring compartment because it's so much easier to work with than some products out there that we've seen. And yeah, I think lots of great things in store for Skybox. And I think there is an off-grid application for this. You know, you need some clever engineering, but in some of the larger systems where efficiency becomes more important, and you need, you know, faster switching, I think this could be a great product for that application. Let's keep moving along here. I featured these last time, but I think this is a great product for you know, small off-grid kind of DC only solutions, be it telemetry, gates, lighting, etc. The Morningstar TSM. So basically everything you get with the TriStar, everything you come to expect from Morningstar in a small footprint at a very good efficiency and with lots of capability for quick programming and just a really solid charge controller. So what we've got here is the MPPT lineup. Of course, there's a full lineup of TriStars and PWM if you're so inclined. I'm a real big fan of MPPT for you know, just the main reason being it really opens up the full breadth of module availability. And that's a really awkward way to say that, but basically what I mean is you're no longer tied to using, call them off-grid modules. You can use modules with a 44 volt VOC. You can run longer strings. So again, big fan of MPPT. They're typically more efficient. You'll see better harvest. Yeah, you're going to pay a little more for an MPPT charge controller, but you're going to get more yield out of it. It will be a lot easier to design around, and yeah, just kind of general better performance overall. I've got here the full table of part numbers. I won't spend much time on this at all, but this is basically all of our item numbers, descriptions, the manufacturing part numbers, so you can look up, you know, people's data sheets, etc. I did want to spend a little bit of time about, you know, talking about what's coming in Q4 and Q1. So hopefully none of this is going to get me in trouble with my my friends and reps at any of these manufacturers, because we're letting some of this out a little early. So coming out from Schneider Electric in Q1, and this is, you know, these are all things that are going to be in our catalog that you'll, you know, start seeing on shelves in, you know, 6 to 8 weeks. Connect Gateway. So this is kind of the next evolution in the, you know, communications and monitoring platform for the Connect lineup of inverters and charge controllers. The Gateway will end up replacing the current CommBox and the product launched last year called the Connect Bridge. So the Gateway will be an all-in-one device that will give you monitoring, two-way communication, and also allow you to do things like speak to other networks and several lithium-ion manufacturers. So not terribly exciting in its own right. You know, it's a communication gateway, but I think exciting for what it will allow you to do with other manufacturers and building out a bigger platform. The next thing on here is XW Pro, which will be you know, all the features and benefits of the XW Plus line of inverters with you know, basically completely overhauled electronics and control circuitry. So they kind of went back to the board, to the drawing board on the controller, if you will. So the control board in the XW Plus that basically governs how the power board and the decisions that are made has been completely redesigned. They needed to do this for a couple reasons, not the least of which was code compliance for Hawaii Rule 14H and California Rule 21. but also for better use and call it accessorization. So excited to see XW Plus early in Q1. What else are we seeing? So in Q4, we're going to start seeing system edge packages from Outback with the FM100 charge controllers. So this is something everybody was, myself included, was very eager to see the FM100. And the first question we had was, hey, this is great. When can I get, when can I get system edge packages? When can I get, pre-wired with this new charge controller? And it's taken us a while to get there, but probably by my next webinar, you'll see, you see some information from us on these new packages, pricing, data sheets, etc. Last thing on here, we expect some new offerings from Morningstar, both in the charge controller lineup and potentially in other parts of off-grid solutions. So I can't say too much about that, but it's the product that we had. We've given feedback on, what we think this product should do, best applications for it, and we think it's really close to the finish line, and we're eagerly awaiting seeing it on the market. So I know that's a bit of a tease, but yeah, you'll hear more from us in Q1 on it. Well, that pretty much takes us to the end of the webinar. It was a bit of a short one this week. Lots of exciting stuff going on, but as I went through my notes and putting this together, there was quite a few things that we felt were close, but just didn't have all the information. Didn't want to come off ill prepared. We'll do another one of these. We try to do these every 2 quarters and just kind of update you guys on what's new, what's exciting, what could be good fits for off-grid, grid-tied battery backup, commercial. So we expect to do another one of these in probably late Q1, and we'll have more to talk about. That said, here's the hardest working guy in solar. So this poor guy signed up for a stock photo deal probably 8 years ago, and everybody's gotten a lot of mileage out of this guy. So I'd like to give him his props. As always, email us at tech@AEE Solar. Give us a phone call, 800-777-6609. We're here to answer your questions, any kind of product support, design, drawings, you name it. That's what we're here for. At this point, I'll throw it back over to Caitlin, and we can field any questions that have come in over the course of the webinar.
Sure. Thank you, Josh. So I'd like to go ahead and start off our question and answer session now. If you have a question, please go ahead and submit it through the question pane located on your control panel. And again, we'll try to answer as many possible questions. You can always exit the webinar during or following the question and answer session. There will be a survey that will pop up in a new window that if you could go ahead and fill it out once the webinar ends, give us your feedback, and I will go ahead and send the presentation over. So we do have a couple of questions here. So I'd like to start off with the first one from Nancy. What is the voltage of the Discover batteries that were shown?
So those come in 2 formats, 24 volt nominal and 48 volt nominal. I say nominal because, typically the voltage across the terminals is higher than that, but those are the kind of standard voltages. So, those are batteries that, even without the Lynk, are basically plug and play with most, all 24 volt and 48 volt inverters or charge controllers.
Great. Dennis is wondering, does the AES have an altitude limitation?
Ooh, that is a great question. So that's a question we get from time to time on products, and it's one of those that really only applies to people at high elevation, and people like me that live in valleys don't often think about it. But the concern there is the dielectric ratings of equipment change at high elevation. So the background there being at lower elevations, you can expect a certain amount of resistance in kind of normal environments between terminals that are unprotected. That just kind of standard resistance lowers the higher elevation you get. So we've seen in the past some manufacturers, most manufacturers have ratings that equipment not approved above 5,000 or 6,000 feet. I don't know the answer to Discover, but as long as we've got your information, we will go run down an answer for you. Great question.
Yeah, Dennis, be on the lookout for an email from us in regards to that. So Jerry's wondering, can you run a Lynk LiPo4 battery bank in parallel with a lead acid battery bank?
I'd say the safe answer here is no. If I guess it depends on what you mean by parallel. If you've got two different charge controllers running, the Discover lithium iron phosphate, and you've got another charge controller running a lead acid bank, I'd say yes, as long as the charge controllers are the same brand and communicate with the inverter if there is one. What you would absolutely not want to do is mix them in the same string or run two dissimilar strings in parallel to the same piece of equipment. So if we're talking about fully parallel, and that should not be a problem. Anything closer than that, I'd say no, that's not recommended.
Greg is wondering.
Today. Awesome.
Yeah, Greg is wondering, is the Skybox California Rule 21 compliant?
It is, and that's an oversight on my part to not have that on there. But it is Rule 21 compliant, both with Phase 1 that we're currently in and Phase 2, which will be effective February 2019, which requires two-way communication capable. So what they're looking for there is that the utility has a path to send commands to power equipment. So yes, Rule 21 and 14H2 compliant.
All right. So this is from Jeff, and bear with me, it's a longer one. Are there currently any off-grid rapid shutdown solutions that comply with 690.12B2, the module level rapid shutdown? Are there any new products that will comply on the horizon?
Yeah, so good question there. For module level rapid shutdown, I'm not familiar with any at this time. Sorry, let me make the best solution I've seen that targets that is the Magnum platform, which is a battery-based inverter charger with a microinverter solution, so GT500 or GT600, and I think it would have to be the GT600. That's the best fit. There may be something from Midnight that I'm not aware of. That's kind of in the brand new launching status. I think they were working on something that would be an inline interrupter between the modules and the string. I can't speak for certain on that. You've also got the option of AC coupling with an N-phase microinverter, but I haven't seen an updated application note on that.
All right. And Aaron is wondering, would you say the Outback Power Skybox is the best solution for customers wanting solar grid tied now with the option to add battery backup at a future date?
I'd say it's certainly up there. I think in the realm of grid tied with possible battery backup, I'd say it's kind of 1A to the Solar Edge storage with LG Chem solution. If the need is going to be kind of more geared towards storage, I'd definitely go with the Outback product because it will, and backup particularly, it's better suited for backup than the other solution. So it's kind of one of those, how likely are you going to need backup capability? I'd say if you're more than 50%, you'd probably steer towards the Outback because better backup capability. And what I mean by that is higher surge ratings. The storage solution is great for obviously just grid tied. It's really good for self-consumption. In a real backup application though, where you've got inductive loads and you need some surge capability, I'd steer towards the Outback product for sure.
Jeff's question is, any news on a 48-volt LG battery being offered anytime soon, and any integration coming with available inverters?
I know that they're close with the Skybox product. And let me take a step back and say, I think LG would love to be selling this product now. The trick for them has been, rather than a drop-in lead acid type lithium-ion battery, theirs is one that requires a dynamic communication with the inverter. And the couple of folks who've been really close to the finish line of integrating all of that with LG Chem have just not gotten across the finish line yet. So it's one of those where we could have brought in those low voltage residue batteries and had them, but it didn't feel like we had a fit for a dance partner with LG Chem. I feel like we're really close with Outback and the SMA Sunny storage product as well. If it's something you guys are really interested in out there, we're willing to take a little bit more of a risk and bring them in and kind of hope that the marriage is sealed, if you will, between the respective inverter companies and the batteries. But being that we've got to buy them from, we've got to place some pretty large orders. They're direct from Korea. There's not local stock. We just wanted to make sure that things were a little closer to final before we made that investment. But yeah, we've got a keen eye on those developments, and we feel like we're pretty close. So hopefully, when I do this presentation in Q1, we'll have those batteries to talk about. Now, I will say that's not a particularly well-suited battery for off-grid, and what I mean by that is that's a chemistry that likes to have a 2 to 4 hour rest period each day where there's not an active charge or discharge occurring. So it's great for self-consumption. It's great for time of use. It's not a particularly great chemistry for a pure off-grid solution. Hope that answers your question.
All right, the next one is, again from Jeff. Does the AES have temperature limitations? I believe so. And I don't have the data sheet in front of me, but any of these batteries are going to operate better at call them room temperature. The lithium iron phosphates that I've seen, you would not want to run, obviously you would not want to run in an uninsulated container. You'd want to keep them out of extreme heat as well. You know what? Since we've got a little bit of time, I've got my catalog in front of me. So for the AES, charging temperature range is freezing, so 32 Fahrenheit to 113 Fahrenheit. Recommended range, which is probably more important in my book, is 59 Fahrenheit to 77 for maximum life and performance. A lot of us don't have access to a room that doesn't go above 77. But if you can find one, or if you can create an insulated enclosure for these, you'll see better performance, a better lifespan. All right. Well, that wraps up our question and answer session. Michael, I did see your comment here in regards to the elevation for the Discovery batteries. We'll go ahead and get those out to you as well. So I just want to thank you, Josh, and thank you all for joining us for the What's New Off-Grid presentation. Join us next week for our next webinar in our webinar series. You can always check out our website for more training opportunities with AEE Solar. And if you are a dealer and you haven't signed up for our dealer conference coming up in January, go ahead and do so. Shoot me an email, and we can go ahead and get you signed up for that dealer conference. If you have any questions, you can always email me and let me know as well. Have a great weekend, and thank you as always for doing business with AEE Solar.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.